Hello, hola, hi. Can you Oh, hi, welcome. Oh, that's great. If you could put in the chat box where you're from, that would be great. Hola, bonjour, konnichiwa, annyeonghaseyo, buongiorno. Oh, hello. Sussex, South Wales, London, Essex, Hungary. Bonjour. Cambridge, I'm in Cambridge. Okay. Bonjour from Scotland. Oh, hi, Nina. Jacqueline. Buongiorno. Federica. Hola, Alberto. Hi, Katie. Bonjour, Sue. Guten Morgen. Bonjour. Bom dia. Hola, bonjour. Guten Morgen. Wow. This is amazing. I'm so excited to this technology is amazing, isn't it? It allows us to collaborate and communicate in ways that were never possible before. It's just amazing. Hello, Raymond. Camelia, hello. I visited Romania. I loved it. Susanna. I loved Hungary. I loved Budapest. Okay. Okay, so bonjour, Salma. Ah, j'adore Paris. Love it. Okay. Ni hao. Hi, Gita. Bom dia. I loved Portugal. I can't wait to travel. If I haven't traveled to where you're from, I can't wait to do so when things are different in the world. Let's go ahead and get started. Let me share my screen with you. So today I'm going to do a presentation titled Language Lessons, 5 Weeks of Low and No Prep Fun. So just a little bit about myself. My name's Janina Klimas. I have a BA in theater arts, as well as a BA in foreign languages and an MA in the teaching of languages. I'm certified to teach Spanish, English, drama, speech, language immersion, and reading. I'm actually working on my French certification. I've led workshops for teachers online. I've presented at the BET Show in London, the annual ACTFL convention, which is the American Council for the Teaching of Foreign Languages. This is my second time speaking at Language Show Live in London. I've spoken at the Polyglot Conference and at schools in Europe and the US. I've also contributed to The Language Educator, which is a publication by the American Council for the Teaching of Foreign Languages, Fluent in 3 months, our friend Benny Lewis. And I've been on several podcasts talking about languages. So why does it need to be fun? I'm just going to tell you a little bit about early in my teaching career. I came to language teaching with a background in languages and a background in acting and writing, and not really a whole lot of training as a teacher. And it was meant to be something sort of temporary, something I was going to try out. And I've been doing it ever since. And I quickly realized that while I'm a passionate language lover, not everybody is, and certainly not some of the kids that we teach in academic institutes. So I wanted to make it fun. And full confession time here, it wasn't for completely altruistic reasons that I wanted it to be fun. I didn't want my days to be, I thought it would be torture for me and for them if it was boring. So I decided to, invest some time and some energy into building a repertoire of low prep activities. That's really important for all of you that are teachers. And I think especially language teachers. Teachers are smart and they've got big hearts and they work really hard. And we're spending so much time trying to get people communicating in this other language. And we've got enough to do. We've got enough on our plates already. So how do I make this fun without creating loads of work for myself? And of course, through experience, I learned I have to have a repertoire of things that are ready to go and that can be adapted to different levels. So this is just some of them that I'm sharing here with you today in our time together. We have a little bit of time together. So let's go ahead and get started. And before I do, actually, I should point out that I'll be talking about how they can be adapted. They can be for an A level. So A for the Common European Framework of Reference, or that's the ACTFL novice. So you'll hear me sort of use those interchangeably, but that's a lot of what we're teaching in schools, right? Is that A level or the ACTFL novice. That's the same level. I'll also be talking about activities for that intermediate, that B level, as well as that C level, which is advanced for ACTFL. And just some hallmarks of those different levels. At the A level, they're learning words and phrases. They're survival words and phrases. And then when they hit the end of that A level, of course, they can start and move into the B level. They can start creating with language, right? So they can start doing things with it. At the beginning, they're sort of, phrase-like structures that they can create, and they move all the way to those things that look more like paragraphs. And then from the advanced level, of course, we're building paragraphs into extended discourse. So words, phrases, sentences, paragraphs, strong paragraphs, connected paragraphs. So just to give you an idea of, I'll keep referring, if I say A, I mean novice. If I say B, I also mean intermediate. And if I say C, I mean advanced. So the very first one, years ago, I invested in some tiny little whiteboards, and I have some dry erase markers. And a perfect A-level activity with any vocabulary that you're doing is called Draw What I Say. And it's exactly what it sounds like. You can have them draw vocabulary. They hold the board up. You can have them do this in small groups with each other. You can have them draw scenes. So for example, when they're learning the vocabulary to talk about the home or a kitchen or a table, they can actually draw what you say in draw a table setting that involves all that vocabulary. It's great total physical response. You can even have them do this in pairs. That's always fun. One person has to describe to the other one what to draw, and someone else has to describe the other person what to draw, and you compare. I love to do this in small groups. It really helps bring a lot of fun to the atmosphere. And it's my belief, all of that fun really lowers affect. Games and fun, it makes it more engaging, and it takes something that's a little bit more difficult that maybe not everybody wants to do and really makes it fun. So I really try to incorporate as much fun as I possibly can without lowering my standards of rigor and language proficiency targets. Another way that you can do this really easily right now, if you're teaching remotely, is just kids can use a piece of paper. Right now, I'm teaching face-to-face right now. My school, we're teaching face-to-face, but I don't have my whiteboards out. I'm just having them use paper. And if you're teaching on something like this, which is Zoom, or on Google Meet, just a piece of paper that they can draw and then hold it up. And if you've got it in grid view, it's a great way to check for comprehension. When they're a little bit more advanced, when they start moving into the B level, I really like to play Pictionary. And you might give them a scenario that they have to read and draw out. It could be the title of a book, it could be the title of a movie, it could be a country, whatever vocabulary you're doing, this fits in really nicely. And the kids can make up the clues. I normally would have them write their clues on little pieces of paper and we choose them. But right now, again, we're reducing contact. So there are lots of ways to do that. You can put a collection in a Google Doc and share it with them. And it's the same effect, but essentially more complicated with Pictionary. And also, as I see it, the distinction between draw what I say and Pictionary, because they're sort of the same thing, is Pictionary is more of a whole group thing. And when students are at that intermediate or B level, their affect is down. They're a lot more comfortable doing things in the big group, whereas those smaller groups are way less threatening, so they can really get into it. And then I can't draw, as you can see. This is when I was learning French, and I really love doodles. And I think that this is a good activity for every single level. And especially now with a lot of remote learning, this is something to do away from the computer. I love doing doodles for vocabulary scenes. It's just a great, fun way to review vocabulary. And I didn't naturally gravitate towards this, but I have had so many students who are so talented at drawing, or they love doodling. They're listening to you when you talk, but they're doodling. Well, how can I make that a language lesson? I like this, even though this isn't paragraph level, for an advanced learner. It works really beautifully to review vocabulary, and it works at every single level. So it's a great vocabulary reinforcer. And then another version of this that's a little bit more advanced that you would be doing in an advanced or C level class is, reading plays and literature and movies. People can draw out what happened, and then that becomes a great way to build those narration skills that we need to really truly attain and move through that C level. As I shared with you before, I came to teaching with a background in drama, and I utilized that immediately. I want to talk about a couple of ways to use dramas at the novice or A level. So when we're at the novice and A level, in an ideal world, I think, our students would be naturally acquiring language through input. And that's all great. That's research-based, that's Krashen. I really believe in that. But I also believe in the learning side. That's also from Krashen. So some of the really deliberate and focused activities that we do to develop proficiency in a language, and drama dialogues are one of them. So they get that input from even your textbook. Even those little dialogues that come in our textbooks, or that can easily be found on the internet. The Foreign Service Institute, for example, has a lot of materials that they publish that have dialogues for beginners. And essentially, you're going to memorize a part, and in your class, they're getting their input from reading and memorizing the part, and then they're getting their output by performing the dramatization. So that theory-based, that Dr. Stephen Krashen theory-based acquisition and learning is happening at the same time. It's really a way to speed all of that up, and you can get them confidently speaking very quickly. And at the end of the day, while I think it's ideal that we acquire language naturally like we did in our first language, again, I'm not afraid to use other tools to help speed up that journey. And if you have enough words and phrases, you're going to make it out of this level into the B level, where you can create your own sentences. So it's really powerful. But I wanted to share one of my favorite activities that I got from this genius teacher years ago, and I've loved it, and everyone needs to hear about it. So I'm telling you about it right now. It's for novice level students, for novice A level students, this family dramatization. Basically, you have a big class of beginners when you're doing that theme where you're learning how to talk about family, and you break them up into groups of maybe 8 or 10. It really depends on how many people you have in your class. And each person plays a member of a family. So your 3 different groups or 4 different groups or however you're going to divide it up, whatever works for you, are going to be families. And then each person in that family has a role in that family. And then the project is they have to memorize and introduce every single member of their family to the group. So it's great. So, if you're the son, you're going to greet, and you're going to introduce, this is my father, this is my brother, et cetera, et cetera. And everybody has to go around and everybody laughs. And in my class, because I used to be an actress, I've got lots of costumes, but I mean, they're easily found at places, fake mustaches and ties and, baby bottles, that kind of thing, really bring it to life. And then everybody's going to want to do it. So that's one way to do that in the novice level. And of course, when students are able to create with language, they can make their own original dialogues. They're creating, they're the authors of their situations. They become a little bit more complicated. The next one I wanted to talk about is an activity that we do to prepare for a role. Maybe not every actor or actress does this to prepare for a role, but I've done it and I thought it was a great fit for languages. And it's called hot seat. And this can be done for beginners, A, novice, intermediate, B, and advanced, C. And essentially what hot seat is when you get a role, you're going to learn as much as you can about your character, right? Because your job is to take that character that's written in black and white on the page and bring it to life. So not only are you going to learn everything that's in the script, you're going to give them a lot of background. So you might say, decide what their favorite drink is, or maybe something that happened in their childhood, right? You're going to really bring this black and white description to make it a real believable person. And so I've adapted this to my class. So for novices, I give them even just a few questions. So what's your name? Where do you live? Etc. However you want to, whatever you want them to learn. And they have to practice those questions. They have to find the answers to the questions if you're creating a character or they're doing research, and they have to memorize them. And then they sit in the hot seat and the whole class asks them those questions. You can even do this with verbs. So that's a rough spot. That could be really difficult. So if kids are studying verbs, you can put them in different groups and they have to brainstorm with their group and come up with questions using that verb tense or that vocabulary theme. And then they go to the hot seat. You give them a minute or 2 minutes, really depending on what the level of the class is. And then they have to ask and answer the question. So it's great communicative practice. I really like to infuse this in the intermediate or B level with a lot of culture. So they might study somebody from history, in your target language culture. So a famous author, a president, a queen, royalty, whatever, somebody really that you'd really like them to learn about, and they can become that person. And then they have to do all the research and sit in the hot seat as though they are that person. It's really fun, and it can be adapted, can be as easy and as scaffolded as you'd like, or it can be something, a really advanced task. When my students really hit the advanced level, I really like to show them the power of monologues. And of course, actors and actresses, something we had to do to be able to get a job, memorize and really bring to life a monologue. And generally they want different types of monologues. So, something Shakespearean or something contemporary. And they want to see your range. They want to see how well you do. This is really fun for culture. I teach Spanish, and it's a really rich language, as are all of yours. And so you'll know the types of materials that you can source to do this, monologues from plays or famous speeches or poems. I mean, I think the possibilities are really endless, and they have to memorize and bring it to life and do a lot of research about the person. It's really quite fun. Post-its. So I love post-its for language teaching. And for my beginning students, I love them because they're tactile and they involve some writing. So you can get kids studying and writing, and it doesn't feel like studying or writing. So one of the ways that I really like to use Post-its is for games. So basically, you would break them all up into groups and you would give them their Post-it notes, and you set a timer, and it could be labeling the room, or it could be trying to label as many of their body parts, and they put the Post-its all over themselves, or their clothes. It can really take something, a kind of dry vocabulary list, and really bring it to life. These tiny Post-its are great for digging deep into reading as well. And it can make it more active and fun. It can make the reading a lot more active. A way that I really like to use Post-its for B, or the intermediate level, is with something to build their fluency. So I like to do a lot of recording as a learner, and you record yourself on a regular basis, it can really help you get a lot of great speaking practice. And it's non-threatening, though it may feel very threatening to start recording at first, but basically you're talking to yourself. Nobody else has to hear it. I have something I do pretty much every week with whatever language I'm working on. I record myself for a few minutes. And if you do that on a regular basis, just 3 or 4 minutes a week, do it for 6 months, and you'll be astounded at the progress you make. And so my students, I really like for them to have that same experience, to hear something from September and then to hear themselves in March, and really hear in a very concrete way the progress that they made. I also there's a lot of assessments that my students have to take where they record. So it's a good way to work through any of those fears. So they're perfectly comfortable by the time they're going to be assessed really formally. So I love the big Post-its, and I would give them a group, a Post-it, and give them a theme and say, okay, whatever we're working on, right? You can adapt this to whatever you're working on, but it's really simple. They love the big Post-its for some reason, which is, I'm not really sure about that, but if they like it and they're willing to work with them, then I'll keep them coming. Have them bullet point out, let them brainstorm together. Okay, what are the things we're going to talk about? For example, if we're talking about the environment, they might bullet point out some of the questions and answers or topics to talk about, greetings. And I would give them a time limit, say, okay, you have to talk for 5 minutes. I don't want to hear any English. And you record yourself and you turn it in. And the Post-it note really helps them brainstorm, and they feel secure. I'm not having them script things out, but bullet point, brainstorm. Okay, we can talk about this. We can talk about this. We can talk about that. And then they feel comfortable with it. They start ad-libbing. The first time can be pretty painful, but once you get through a few times of that, it's really helpful. You of course don't need a Post-it for this, but again, like I said, the kids love it and they think it's fun. They'll put it up on the wall, they'll stand up, so that incorporates a bit of movement, get them out of their seat. A couple of things. I'm so sorry. I think I forgot to mention, I'm not monitoring the chat box, but I'm gonna, when we're through the presentation, the activities, we'll go to the Q&A. So at the end, okay? The next one is also with big Post-it notes. And Dear Abby is a famous column in the States where I'm from. And essentially it's an agony aunt. And I know that many cultures have their similar, people write in problems and they're answered. For advanced or C-level students, I like to give them the big Post-its. and they have to write out a problem. And it doesn't have to be a real problem. In fact, my students they like to make up problems. They use their imagination. And of course, advanced level students can, and this is part of the fun part of it. They can kind of take on a persona and invent some crazy problem. And then they all put them up, stick them up on a wall or on the board, and then that's the parking lot. And so everyone has to go get somebody else's problem, and then they have to read it and they have to write a really detailed response, and then we share them. So you've got reading, you've got speaking, you've got writing. And I also want to point out, that advanced level, that C level, we have to be able to give a lot of details, and there are a lot of advanced structures that are used, a lot of refinement, right? It requires a lot of refinement to really give advice effectively and tactfully, really in our own languages as well. So it's a really great context to build that skill, I think. The error game. So, I accepted a really long time ago, as much as I didn't want to make errors in my languages, it was just part of life. But I think this is a real challenge for teachers because, I've spent a lot of my life working with teenagers, and they don't want to make errors. So that's one of the reasons I tried to really gamify and make my class as fun as possible, is to lower that affect and have an atmosphere of it's okay to make mistakes. Because the fact of the matter is, you can be a very effective communicator in a language you're learning, and that all that accuracy is going to come later, but it will never come later if you don't work through all of those mistakes. So at the A level, I think that the most important thing for me, and I feel that it's really paid off in my students' proficiency, is to understand how create that atmosphere. So to give a lot of speaking activities that don't have really difficult criteria. They have to complete the task, or to have a lot of games to where they're willing to make mistakes and work through them because they know that it's okay, and that they can get to the other side if they keep doing it, that they don't have to be perfect to be communicators in a new language. So I think that's really important. But then the game comes when they start, once you've established that atmosphere, and I really like this for all levels, A, B, and C, is whatever they do, maybe they take an exam or some role play or an activity or an essay or whatever it is they're doing, I collect their errors. I even, sometimes when they're speaking, I walk around with a clipboard and I write down all of their errors, and then I make a game out of it. So you can set the rules of the game however you want. I like to hand out fake euros, not doing that right now. Giving them an imaginary number, because then they have to practice with numbers as well. And then they have to kind of put down a little bet, like a little wager. And you put whatever sentence, with errors in it, and then they have to make the correction, and then they can add that to their total, or they can take it away. Or you can just do checks. And what's really fun about it is, once you've established that it's okay to make errors, you talk about what's wrong with each of the sentences, and you're getting all of this grammar and vocabulary completely in context, all of these corrections, so much more than, I don't know about you, but I've handed back plenty of papers in my career that I'm not sure how thoughtfully the mistakes were looked over. But this is a really engaging way, and the kids are actually really funny. They say, "Oh, that was mine. I didn't know what to say." They'll own up to it. Well, how should I have said that? And there's so much learning that goes on. It's really one of my favorite games. And again, once you've got that atmosphere, you can use this a lot, and the kids actually enjoy playing it. They ask to play it. They like to play it with the little whiteboards for some reason, which we're not using right now, as I shared with you, but so good investment. This one is about not knowing how to say things. So one of the skills we teach, particularly in the intermediate level and moving into the advanced level, is circumlocution, which of course is a fancy way for saying something in other words. That's an important skill. If you don't know how to say something, how do I get my point across? So with this game, you can take whatever vocabulary you're working on, and the students have to describe it in other words. So if you've got a little bit of time in your class one day, and it's not really enough to start, a lecture or an activity or something like that, the kids can take whatever vocabulary you're working on, or students, adults, this works for adults perfectly as well, and they have to describe it in other words in the target language. So that's kind of prep for the next class when you actually play the game, and you can put them in teams and you give them the word. I like to use little pieces of paper right now. A Google Doc is fine. That can kind of go down. You can give one team one set, another team another set. That way they don't see it, and they get a point for every word they do. So making not knowing how to say something into a game. Cooking. Really quickly, cooking is fantastic. For that novice level, reading recipes is great, or having them follow you making a recipe. So they have to listen to what you say, something really simple, something that involves TPR, making a dip or something like that. And then of course, recipes. I love taking target language recipes and having the kids actually draw out what it is, and they have to label the vocabulary. So that's a really deep reading activity. And then you can actually take the recipes and make a class cookbook, and then, make them. Again, these are really appropriate when, the world is back. We're in a different place. Again, using drama, restaurant, a really basic skill, survival skill, have a basic dialogue at that A level in a restaurant. Intermediate level students can create with more elaboration and with a menu. And then when people are advanced, I love to do activities that involve complaints, just a little dramatization that involves complaints, because again, to be able to tactfully express and get a problem resolved is an important skill. And to be able to tactfully resolve it is also an important skill. So complaints, this one, you see some at a hotel, but one could be in the hotel restaurant, and you see the baby, maybe a baby's crying, or somebody's loud outside, or just the things that happen with people. And the restaurant could be a context for that. I've done that. It's really quite fun. Okay, so children's stories. Children's stories are amazing because they've got illustrations, but the grammar can be deceptively really complex. So it's a great context. So having children's books in your class library, I think is a must, and reading to them. So for example, that in Spanish, teaching the future, there's a lot of future for speculation. So it's a really great way to get them to hear that advanced, more advanced structure. This one, children's stories, this is called LAITS. This is University of Texas Spanish Proficiency Exercises. And if you can kind of scroll around and see different tasks that are recorded by native speakers from all over the world. And one of them is a bunch of children's stories. And people from all over the world, native Spanish speakers, tell versions of famous fairy tales. And students can listen and hear a native speaker and then retell in their own words. So I think, again, it's a complicated advanced level task, but it's great practice to move from intermediate into advanced. Fairy tale trial. This is another activity that I really love. This is definitely really advanced. So again, using those same fairy tales, breaking your class up into groups. If you had a smaller class, which a lot of advanced classes tend to be a little bit smaller, you might put them in 2 groups. And so take Goldilocks, for example, take that story. You would have one half of the class be the jury, and the other half of the class would be the characters in the story. And you take them outside the room and you tell them that some kind of mishap happened and somebody's on trial. So for example, with Goldilocks, perhaps their problem is a Michelin, it takes place in a Michelin starred restaurant. A critic came in, they got a bad review, something like that. And then while they're organizing what they're going to say to the jury when they're on trial, you retell the story to the jury, and then they come in and they have to interact. It's really fun. They play the characters. If you've got dress up, it's really great, but there's a lot of C-level activity going on, advanced, long discourse. It's very communicative, and there's also a lot of laughter, so it's super fun. Surveys. I absolutely love surveys. This is a quick one I made on Google Forms some years ago. And what's great about this, apart from being really good for remote learning right now, is that once everybody answers, you can go to the responses in Google. So you've got questions, you'll have two little things at the top, questions and responses. So when you go to the responses, it's going to take everyone's responses and it makes all these different graphs. So it's a great way to create speaking prompts. And those visuals are really necessary for students at that A level. So they can see, for example, in the results, how many people have more than 5 people in their family or just one, and all the different names of people's mothers, for example. And you can even just do these by hand. I've done these on giant Post-it notes in my classroom where I'm writing out the survey just using columns and just writing a few little categories, 3 little categories, and collecting answers. And then I'm building that with them, like language experience approach, I guess you would say. For intermediate students, you can just give them a theme and they can create the questions themselves, and you make a group survey based on what they talked about. In advanced, it's great because they have the ability to give short answers. So really good. They can write. So this next one are fake text messages. And I was really reticent to do this one at first because it seemed a bit silly, but it's been one of my students' favorite activities. There's something called fake text generator. And for novice students, if you see, I wrote out this conversation for them. And then I just had a series of questions. It's really that simple. It's great reading comprehension. So this is all about school in the past tense. And then when they become intermediate, they're actually going to want to make them. And so even my novice students said, "Oh, please, can I make it?" So you basically can just copy and paste from a word processing program into this fake text generator. And you have a little JPEG and you can put it in a document, but the kids love making them. So they make their own. And for advanced level students, I would write something really complicated, maybe an issue at work, for example, and the students have to really discuss it in depth. And what's great about this too is that you get to infuse so much culture into it. Real life. How do people write text in France? What do all of those little abbreviations mean? You're really giving them a good window into everyday culture, and that's really important. Hot potato. So I bought this silly little hot potato on Amazon some years ago, and it has served me really well when, maybe my lesson has ended a little bit earlier than I thought it would. But it's basically just it has a battery in it. You press it and it talks, and hot potato, here we go. And the music goes on and it goes off on one person. And for beginners, I have lots of little vocabulary pictures. We play little games with it, say the vocabulary, and they get to keep the pictures as points. They beg me to play this. When they're intermediate, when it lands on them, maybe they have to answer a question or 3 questions. And then when they're advanced, I have the privilege of being able to teach some kids when they hit the advanced level that I taught as beginners. So they often ask me for sort of brain breaks to incorporate this in an activity. So we might be doing some, really advanced level reading about, a not so fun topic, but they'll want to, they'll make up games. All right. So when the hot potato lands on you, you have to give 2 opinions about the reading, for example, and it just makes it all a little bit lighter and a bit funner. So the next activity I have are I do have these tiny little plastic babies that somebody gave me, and I use them to teach prepositions. So for my beginners, I would put these little babies around the room and I would ask them questions using prepositions, give them choices, right? Is the baby on top of the computer or is the baby on top of the desk? Really giving lots of input there. Now, once they can handle all of those, when they hit that B level, I let them, they hide and they tell me where they are. And then as an advanced task, I would have everyone adopt a baby and they can write all about that baby's life. So that's good, that narration, that C level narration. Guess Who for beginners. If you don't know this game, please go get it. It's wonderful for all levels. Basically, it's a guessing game. You ask closed questions and yes, no questions, do process of elimination. For beginners, I have a little card in the target language where they can ask. And then when it's advanced, when they're advanced, they can ask questions like yes, no, simple likes and dislikes, doing taste tests, give them a little clipboard, put some target language food out there, and they have to write about what they like and what they don't like. Language at the table, sitting around a table and talking, right? The beginners, they'll need some help, but when you get more advanced, it's really easy. We only have a few more minutes and I have quite a few more activities to talk about, but what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to take your questions, and I have these activities in a book to give you, just a free ebook, so that you can see them and you can reference them too. I have ways to use photos, ways to do shopping. I have some exchange students, some activities, that guessing games as well. And I'm looking for my cursor right now. Let's see. Okay. So, oh, thank you guys. I'm going to give, there's, I think, about 20 more activities. I'm going to put in the chat box a link for everything that you saw and plus a few more. There you go. So questions. Let me get to the questions because I've got a couple of minutes. How would I incorporate doodles with Greek? Oh, I love root words, prefixes, and suffixes. Oh, I don't know. That's a good question. Because you'd have to get, I would probably draw them out first, to be honest with you, to give myself some ideas. And then they could go on drawing. I would probably give that like as an input. Do I think activities work with a very small group of adult learners? I think anything can be adapted to a big group or a small group. But it's just a matter of how big your groups are. Do you want to do pair works? And again, it depends on their personality. A reading exercise for novice level. Oh, okay. I love that. Okay, so I talk about reading actually in the book, but anything that involves them digging deep into the text. So Post-it notes, highlighters, read with a friend. They have to read out loud to each other, and then they make questions, and then the groups come together and ask each other the questions. Post-it, be a COVID-friendly classroom. Right now, thank you for that. So a Jamboard on Google Meet. In all of these activities, if you've got small groups, if you're remote learning or socially distant, Google Meet, I know, has an extension called Google Meet Breakout Rooms. Let's see, did I get all the questions? Gamification. You know what? That's an excellent story. There are studies on it, and I haven't looked into it, and I probably should, but I've just seen the effects myself, so I've kept going it. The error game, I talk about that in the book. So the examples, I know we covered a lot today. Spanish proficiency exercises. So I hope that the book gives you some more examples. So I'm going to do this right now. Spanish. I'm going to put that in the chat box right now. And let me share the book again. So that's Spanish, and then my book, or my ebook. This isn't a book. I've got, let's do this. And you have to opt into my email list, and it'll deliver it right to your email. Okay, so let me go to fake text messages right now. Let me go to that one. Fake text generator. So let's do that. Fake text generator. There's a ton of them if you just Google that, but I'm gonna give you a link anyway. I hope that these ideas and activities that I've done are fun. One-to-one lessons, I would play, it really depends. The one-to-one lessons, the beauty about a one-to-one lesson is that you get to adapt it completely to the student. So, and again, that's a matter of what their interests are. So if they want to have serious conversation and that's what they enjoy, that's what I would say. Let me go through and I have to end this. I need to end on time. But I just wanted to show you really quickly how to connect with me. I'm on Instagram. I share a lot of these on Instagram. I'm Janina at Real Life Language, and I share a lot of them on Pinterest as well. So Real Life Language at Pinterest. And my blog is here. I do this on my blog, but it might just be easier to find. Let's see. I share lots of stuff here too. Okay. And that's me on Instagram. And I'm not great on Twitter. I'll be honest with you. I'm definitely, I'm on Twitter, but I'm not great. Okay. I don't have any more time to answer anymore. So please don't hesitate to get in touch. I'm going to put an email address there too. Thank you so much. I wish you all wonderful teaching, wonderful language teaching. It's great to connect with you. Bye. Thank you for your kind words. Thank you.